Moving on to the locative case, this one is a little bit easier. So we have locative is location, essentially. And in English, we'll use the word in, we'll use the word at. It's completely separate. In a store, at a school, in Latvia. However, in Latvian, they use a suffix instead. So in a store becomes veikala, at a school becomes skola, in Latvia becomes Latvija. Now let's look at our chart. This one, we have our nominative case again. It's our base. We've removed the accusative because that's not important right now. And we have locative instead. So this answers kur, which is where. It's not what. We have gotten away from the what, and we are moving on to where. Now, let's simplify it even more. We're only going to look at the singular versions of these. So we have nominative still, locative still, kas, kur, but both are singular. Now, let's change veikals. Let's find S, first declension, and when we drop it down to locative, we have an A with a little hat, a little line. Skola, we find the fourth declension, A becomes A with a little hat. Latvia also ends in an A, so same declension, fourth, and Latvia with a little hat. This also, of course, means that the A is elongated, so instead of skola, skola, which in speech tends to get dropped a little bit, so it's hard to hear the difference. So if it's hard to catch, then you're not the only one. It's okay. We've got this. Now we have skapis. This is the second declension, and this becomes I with a hat. So skapi. So first declension becomes A, fourth declension becomes A, second declension, it drops the S, and then it replaces the little dot with a line. Fifth declension, then we have tirgus, third declension, which we have not really talked about much. This becomes, drop the S just like this one, and you have U with a hat. So the trend here, as you can see all the way across, there are lines. The lines in singular, they tell you it is locative. Now the last one is sepure, which simply becomes just as the A. It's the same thing, but with an additional line. Sepure. Now the last one is sixth declension. We have nakts. And instead of getting caught up with the first declension, we remember, wait a minute, nakts, that is a sixth declension word. So we have to go sixth declension. S becomes nakti. Now let's add in our plurals again. Let's find veikali. So we find our I's, and it is definitely the masculine declensions, but we still don't know which one it is because it's the same across all three. But again, it's okay because plural locative, also they're all the same thing. So they all end in OS. So veikali in locative plural becomes veikaluas. Skolas, AS. Now we know this is fourth declension. And then we bring it down. It's just the same as this one. Nothing really changes. It just adds a line over the A. Now let's move on to the word skapis. So nominative singular, it would be skapis, but nominative plural, it is skapyi. We add a little J as more of a cushion, but it's not part of a suffix. So keep an eye out for J's. So this is the same thing, it ends in I, which means in the nominative case it is plural, and we just bring it down. It doesn't really matter which declension it is at this point, because we know it's going to end in OS. Then, tirgi, once again, same thing. I know that it is third declension, but we don't necessarily know that right now. It doesn't matter because it still becomes OS. Sepures, we find E, ES, and just as the fourth declension is, you come down, it simply is the same thing as the plural nominative, it just adds a hat over the E. Then, remember sixth declension, we have noctis, which is plural, and then we go down, and it's exactly the same as the other feminine declensions. All you have to do is add a line over the I. So let's look for a moment at sequus. Sequus means at what time, but you can remember this easier because seek generally translates to how. So for example, seek douds is how many, how much. And then os, remember, right here we see that it's locative. So the os will help you remember at what time. And then when you look at words like devinuos, you remember that means at 9 because it ends in os. That means at.